Hey everybody, welcome to the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy, sitting here with Maddie and Jen as always. Good morning, Maddie and Jen.
Morning.
Happy New Year to you guys. I say that as a fellow Jew. It is the New Year.
Shana Tova.
And you? I don't know what number it is. I've never know what number it is.
Jen?
3 Jews in a room and none of us know.
We are all lapsed.
Jesus. He was a Jew too. Betcha he knows what year it is. Thank you guys for listening, and we'd like to hear what you have to say. You know, you listen to this podcast. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any criticisms, or you just want to say hi, leave us a message at 845-307-7446. You could also email us at backroomandy@gmail.com. You could follow me on Twitter at Andy Ostroy. And please leave a review if you do listen to this podcast. Reviews are very important. Very excited about our guests today. We have 2 guests. It's our first, hopefully not our last, husband and wife team. It is Rachel Vindman and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. So they'll be coming up shortly. But right now, let's get into some important stuff.
If you care about democracy and you care about the survival of our republic, then you need to understand, we all have to understand that we cannot give people power who have told us that they will not honor elections. Elections are the foundation of our republic, and peaceful transfers of power are the foundation of our republic. And we must have elected officials in both parties who understand and honor that duty and that responsibility. That
is our favorite Republican and right-wing patriot, Liz Cheney, who is referring, of course, to the midterm elections, which are coming up, Jesus, in a month? That's crazy. And she's really referring to the fact that there are hundreds of Republican candidates running in about 27 states who are full-on election deniers. And nowhere is it more critical and frightening than in Arizona.
Again, I don't know that I have ever voted for a Democrat. But if I lived in Arizona now, I absolutely would.
Arizona, which was a hotly contested state in the 2020 election, which eventually flipped and went to Biden. I believe it's the Secretary of State who's a major election denier. He's running there. I forget his name. What stopped us from devolving into autocracy last time was the fact that people like Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, secretaries of state, just said no. And this year, there are going to be people who are probably going to win who have indicated they would not have said no. And that's really frightening. It's just part of the overall craziness that exists and has poisoned our system and the minds of Republicans for the last several decades. Here's another gem from Liz Cheney.
The Republican Party is the party of Reagan, the party that essentially won the Cold War. And you look now at what I think is really a growing Putin wing of the Republican Party. And you see news outlets like Fox News running propaganda. You watch it not just on Tucker Carlson's show, although he is the biggest propagandist for Putin on that network. But you see it on many of their shows. And you really have to ask yourself, whose side is Fox on in this battle?
Yeah, she's 100% correct there. You know, I saw this video on Twitter yesterday. It was these people at the Trump rally, I think. And the reporter was talking to a woman about Trump and the election and all that. And I mean, in essence, what this woman said was, how do I know the moon is made out of cheese? Because it's on Fox News. Watch Fox News. You'll see. I mean, the brainwashing that has occurred over several decades, which has just really eroded the intellectual thinking, the intellectual curiosity of millions and tens of millions of Americans is pretty chilling. I don't know, guys. What else piqued your interest this week, Maddie?
I think we have to talk about Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yes, let's.
What she did in court was to basically call out the Federalist lunatics on the court on the faux originalism that they have. And specifically, there were 2 cases that she really chimed in on. One was about the Clean Water Act, which she did a great job on. But on the Merrill versus Milligan, which is in Alabama, she basically destroyed them and explained what the 14th Amendment really was.
She's not shy and she's not intimidated. And unfortunately, she's in a very small minority. You know, when RBG was on the court, Chief Justice John Roberts often voted with the left and as a swing vote. And we don't have that anymore. I mean, what's the makeup? 6-3. And so as great as she's going to be, it's just truly unfortunate that a lot of it is likely going to be just preaching to the choir. Jen?
I don't want to jump the gun. I have something to add later.
Very mysterious. What could that be? We'll just have to wait. Everybody's just sitting around waiting anxiously now, especially me. All right, we have to talk about Trump and the whole special masturbator thing, as I like to call it. The news just keeps coming and coming. No pun intended. Oh, God, I didn't really just say that, did I? So Tuesday, the Trump team filed a petition in the Mar-a-Lago documents, stolen documents case. They're saying that Special Master Raymond Dearie, the outside legal expert appointed by Florida Judge Eileen Cannon to review the materials, should be allowed to examine everything, even the classified documents, to see which of these classified documents are actually belonging to Trump, which is the whole crazy thing in this saga. This comes after the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals recently overturned Cannon's ruling and granted the Justice Department's request to keep the classified documents, which I believe number around 100, separate from Dearie's review. But the most interesting thing about this is that the way the Supreme Court works is that when this kind of emergency appeal gets put forth, it goes to a specific justice on the court who oversees a specific circuit. And guess who oversees the 11th Circuit?
Who?
Good question, Jen. You're just full of mystery today, aren't you? Clarence Thomas.
Shocking.
Amazing. They would have appealed to him.
Clarence Thomas, you know, the completely objective, unbiased.
And he never talks to his wife.
Never talks to
Ever.
his wife, probably never sleeps with his wife. I don't even know if they live in the same house. He gets to, he's the first stop on this train. And as a reminder for our listeners, Clarence Thomas was the lone dissenting vote last year when a case came before the court to order or not Trump to release and Mark Meadows release texts and documents, including and relating to stuff his wife, Ginny Thomas, was involved in. But he never talks to his wife. They never discuss business. Never. And so what's likely to happen is that he's just going to push it up to the rest of the court, not make a decision by himself. But we'll see.
Lawrence Tribe weighed in yesterday and said he didn't think that it was possible he would do anything, but to see if he was going to do anything, he would have to bring the whole court in.
Yeah.
In which case, the chances of anything happening.
He could also kick the whole thing to the curb.
Which is what he should do.
Which is exactly what this court should do. Not even hear this nonsense.
And just one other thing on the Trump topic is coming out today is multiple news agencies are reporting that the Department of Justice has reached out to Trump's lawyers, indicating they believe there are dozens of more classified documents that have not been returned.
Yeah, that hit last night. Yes, and that's really interesting because not only did Trump, but his lawyer, they swore that they had handed over everything and signed affidavits to that effect. And so this thing is certainly not over. On Wednesday, the 11th Circuit granted Justice Department's motion to fast track the appeal against Judge Cannon's order granting the special master. And basically what the court did was speed up the deadlines. So, Trump's strategy is to stall, delay, kick the can down the road. So now you have October 14th is when the initial brief is due by Trump. 10th, there's a response due, and then another response on the 17th of November. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel for this stuff, which is great. And as Maddie said, the new demand by Justice Department for any additional documents. I want to briefly touch on the Herschel Walker case, which if I spend too much time on it, my blood pressure rises. I mean, not only is this guy the dumbest candidate to ever enter any race, I think, anywhere in the history of politics. But he's just the hypocrisy here is infuriating. I was listening to, I think it might have been CNN or maybe MSNBC the other night. There's a Republican strategist, Alice Walker, and she said something like, the reason Republicans are defending him is because, there's the public political proclamation that he's made as a strong anti-abortion candidate. And then there's his private life. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of what liberals have been saying for 50 years, is that this is private. This is between a wife or a woman and herself or her husband or her boyfriend or her doctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That they are now using that as the defense of this guy. It's stunning in its hubris and hypocrisy. Anyway, I could sense my blood pressure rising already. But also infuriating is that the Republicans almost uniformly are absolutely defending this guy as if he's not a liar, not a hypocrite, not doing the exact opposite of everything they've claimed they believe in. Let's play this Dana Loesch clip.
So I don't care if Herschel Walker paid to abort endangered baby eagles. I want control of the Senate.
Jen.
Fuck you, Dana Loesch. I mean, first of all, why are you bringing in baby eagles? This is just insane.
I know. What do baby eagles do?
And I'm so angry because the Republicans are way better at spin. They get their people to fall in line. And I know when people, Michelle, I'm trying to channel Michelle, when they go low, you go high. And I just can't. I'm just so angry.
It's all so infuriating. It's infuriating because you're talking about a spousal and child abuser, someone who's threatened other humans with death, someone who proclaims to be against abortion, even in cases of rape and incest and the health of the mother, and then lies about it and has paid for abortions. That the Republican Party is the party of faith, right? The good Christian party, the party of faith, is choosing him over a fucking minister, an actual preacher.
But he's a Democrat.
Unbelievable. But his son came out. The controversy this week is that his son, Christian, came out and posted some stuff on Twitter, made some statements to the effect of, my father is the most awful human being that has ever walked the face of the earth. Okay, you can fill in the blanks. Herschel Walker's response.
The left would do whatever they can to win this seat.
The left. His son, by the way, is like a real staunch conservative. That's what he's known for in his TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat influencer mode. Where does the left come into this? Like Nancy Pelosi and Christian Walker had like a late night meeting of how they're going to conspire to take down his dad. The kid's talking about years and years and years of neglect and abuse and bullshit. And the dad is like the left. But the favorite thing about all this to me is, circling back to Trump. This is an actual quote from Donald Trump talking about Herschel Walker. In Georgia, think about Georgia. In Georgia, Herschel, they did the ballot to Herschel Walker. They did ballots. Do you know how great a football player he is? Oh my God. Wake me up from this fucking nightmare, will you please? Jesus Christ. Last but not least, we got another J6 hearing coming Thursday, October 13th. We have the midterms, as I mentioned, in a little tiny more than a month. The big question is, are they going to put out a preliminary report before then, a full report? And whatever they put out, is it going to be viewed as being politically charged because of the election? What a mess we're in. Anyway, I am very excited to bring out and talk with our guests. They are Rachel and Alexander Vindman. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. Rachel is an opinion columnist at USA Today. She's a member of the USA Today Board of Contributors. She co-hosts the Suburban Women Problem podcast and is an advisory board member for the Renew Democracy Initiative. She's married to her husband, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who participated in the first impeachment hearing of Donald Trump. And as a military spouse, she lived in Germany, Ukraine, and Russia. She's a prominent activist and plain-spoken political commentator on Twitter, where you can follow her at NatSecHobbyist. That's NatSec hobbyist. Alexander Vindman is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel who was most recently the Director for Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and Russia on the White House's National Security Council. He previously served on the Joint Chiefs of Staff and as an attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, Russia. He is currently a doctoral student and senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. Also, he's a Pritzker Military Fellow at the Lawfare Institute. He's an executive board member for the Renew Democracy Initiative. He's senior advisor for Vote Vets and the author of the New York Times bestselling memoir, Here, Right Matters. Alex was born in Soviet Ukraine. His mother died when he was a toddler. His dad brought him and his twin brother and his older brother to the United States. They were raised in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn. Alex is a graduate of SUNY Binghamton and Harvard University. He's a Russia-Ukraine expert with a military career that spanned 21 years. He was on the infamous July 25th, 2019 Do Me a Favor call between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about investigating Biden. That was the call that Trump referred to as the perfect call. Rachel, Alex, welcome into the back room.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Shana Tova.
Yes, I'm sitting here with my co-producer, editor, engineer, guru, and Jen of all trades, Jen Hamoud. And so we have three Jews in this room. So my first question to you guys, I wanted to know, are both of you Jewish? I know, Alex, you were raised and born a Jew, and Rachel, is that what's your story?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
I am not, but we are raising our daughter Jewish. I'm very active in our synagogue. Actually, on the board I'm a co-chair of the membership committee, which I like to say takes actually 90% of my time. And if anyone's ever been a volunteer at a synagogue, you will understand that. So,
well, that makes you very Jewy in my book.
My daughter tells me that Rachel is more Jewish than I am. So, you know.
Yes, she actually regularly says that. She said it just the other night. Again.
Now, is that because you guilt the hell out of her all the time, or what?
No, I think frankly, Rachel is definitely more spiritual than I am, and I think on that basis, I think the notion of faith is kind of central to her, and I think that comes through to our daughter.
Well, also, Alex was born in the Soviet Union and then raised by Soviet Jews, which is just a very different experience.
Yeah. Well, we're not judging here because we have three Jews here and none of us can tell what the New Year was, so we have no idea what number it is. Yeah. So
neither do I.
Yeah, we're failing in our Jewiness here.
I'll tell you, I get asked that question sometimes, not necessarily if we're both Jewish, but whenever it comes to a question of faith, I tend to feel a bit of imposter syndrome, because I think it is important to me. It's kind of the tenets of the faith, the traditions, the morals and ethics are something that I believe in. Maybe tenets of the faith, kind of as a practice of tradition or something of that nature. But I do feel kind of like an imposter sometimes, in this particular area.
Well, it's like the old, cultural versus religious thing, which I'm totally on board with, because, I had friends this week. They were like, oh, I'm fasting and I won't be on Twitter. And I'm like, I'm eating a bacon, egg, and cheese and I'm tweeting like a madman. Yeah. So,
what's interesting is that, there are synagogues now where you actually don't have to believe in Judaism, but you could still go to the synagogue. I guess
you don't have to believe in God. You don't believe in God.
You don't have to believe.
Sign me up.
What is it? It's like is it reconstructive or something?
No, I don't even
know.
It's like re-awesome is what it is, actually.
There are members. I mean, but there are members of the Reform movement who people don't believe in God. And I just know this when we were doing Rabbi Search Committee, and it was a question we specifically asked, or members of the congregation could ask, because for some people it was important, for others it wasn't. Yeah. But I mean, there's this thing of you sit down for a Passover dinner and you think there are the tradition of it, of the people around the world who've done it in some form. I mean, it doesn't have to be the perfect Seder, but sitting down and doing this and just
it's a bond.
It is. So I mean, that kind of tradition, very Fiddler on the Roof, but that kind of tradition is sort of I think that's important just, for heritage and family, and especially for our daughter to kind of make that connection. And then when she gets older, she can decide if she wants to do it or not. But that's the kind of what I'm trying to instill in her. But I mean, if she reads Torah perfectly at her bat mitzvah, which she won't, it doesn't matter to me. It's kind of that tie to something before her.
Sure, it's connection and community and that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the notion of doing an interview with a rabbi and going, Rabbi, do you believe in God?
Yes, the first time I was like,
That's
what
crazy.
is happening? This is so weird. But the new person.
Wow, I love it. I love the way that sounds.
It's interesting. Rachel said, kind of raised in a family of Soviet Jews where basically there was no practice. For my father came over here at 47 for his entire life. And therefore there wasn't kind of a deep traditional or any kind of practice in the house. But I did participate in a Lubavitcher, Orthodox organization up through my bar mitzvah, where basically they cater to or they try to address the needs of the Soviet Jewish population. So I went from kind of not much practice in the home. My dad definitely has strong feelings about being Jewish, positive feelings, but to doing the weekend excursions to 770 and the Lubavitcher practice, and then now so it was a little bit strange kind of moving to a Reform synagogue or something of that nature, because it's like just the different things to get used to.
Well, you're going to a synagogue, which I'm a lot more than I'm doing. But speaking of your child in Brighton Beach, I'm going to flip this around for a second because Jen has something interesting she wants to ask you.
Hi there. First, I just wanted to thank you for your service. I'm so honored to have you on the pod. Thank you so much. As a fellow SUNY B grad, and my grandparents lived in Brighton Beach, and those are my fondest memories, doing a tashlish into the ocean. And I have a very important question for you. Did you go to Mrs. Stahl's Knishes growing up?
I don't. I mean, I probably was. So the answer is I ate at several different Knish places in Brighton Beach. They were all absolutely delicious. I guess the question is which one. Where's it located? Because I don't remember. I was probably too young to remember the names.
Yeah, it was right on the boardwalk, right by the library.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, I ate Knishes on the boardwalk many a time.
Thank you so much.
And they were delicious
for indulging me.
I mean, there's something. Knishes are interesting. There's a kind of a breakfast dish called sirniki in Ukrainian. It's kind of that sweet cheese type of thing. So I think it's some sort of adaptation either from the Jewish population to, the Russian Ukrainian population, or the other way around, some sort of cross-pollination there. But I like those with the cherries, the sweet or sour cherries. That's the best ones. That's the best kind of knish.
And one thing you're going to learn.
We're going to have a debate.
What's that, Rachel?
Now we're going to have a debate about which are the best knishes.
Obviously, it's kasha.
Which I was going And I was going to say that the great thing about this podcast is that despite all the breaking Ukraine and Russia news, we think it's important to talk about knishes. Yes. That's the real global crisis right now. Where can you get a good knish?
People are tired of hearing me talk about, probably some of the geopolitical stuff. So
yeah, well, that was the whole point. Yeah,
this is the culture war stuff.
But we're gonna get to the non-important Ukraine-Russia stuff shortly. But I second what Jen said, Lieutenant Colonel. I want to thank you for your heroism, your patriotism, your service to your country, our country, both in and out of the military. Personally, I have found it and still find it utterly deplorable, the way you've been treated, which is just an extension of the larger issue in this country, which I want to ask you about later, about where we've come and how we treat our military and our law enforcement officers and how things have just gone chaotic. But I do want to thank you again, and I think you, in many ways, are without peer for all of the things you have done in service to America. So thank you for that.
Thank you, but my twin brother would dispute that. He would say that my identical twin would say that he is a peer, but
but that's what twins are supposed to do. He probably tells you were adopted, right? Like that's what I told my brother.
I tell him that he's adopted. Well, actually, we have a slightly different narrative. I tell him that I'm his creator. I let him split off of me, as I made the decision consciously as a single cell to divide into and bring him into existence.
That is awesome and incredibly unique. I've never heard that before, and I definitely want to steal that because I've been telling my brother he's been adopted. My brother in a family of small Jews is like 6'2" with blonde curly hair. I don't know where he comes from. Yeah. And I used to just tell him, you're adopted. That's where you came from. Yeah. The most important question, are you guys cat or dog people?
Dog people. We have 3 dogs.
Oh, what kind of dogs?
So I grew up with cats, so I don't want to upset the cat people out there. And
wise choice.
We will still associate with cat people, but we are decidedly dog people. Although my daughter likes cats too. We have a 14-year-old lab greyhound, kind of built sleek like the greyhound features of a lab. We have a beautiful German Shepherd, Aussie Shepherd mix.
Oh, nice.
He is what, 2.5, babe?
2.5, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a brand new puppy because we didn't have enough already. We decided to get a brand new golden doodle who is like 12 weeks old.
No, he's 15 weeks old, Alex.
And what are their names? Somehow I sense that they have really interesting names.
Boots is she has Boots. That's the 14-year-old. We have Ace, who is the shepherd, and we have Loki, who lives up to his mischievous name as the puppy.
Well, I'm a dog person, and I have 2 cat people in the room with me. So you were very diplomatic, as expected, in your inclusion of the cat people. One other thing, another thing I want to get to is Curb. You were on Curb. That was Cheryl Hines is a close friend of mine. She was in Waitress, the film my late wife wrote and directed. And she directed a film that Adrian wrote, which I produced way back, called Serious Moonlight. And that show is, to me, the funniest show on television. So when I saw that you were on it, I was like, this is amazing. And when Larry, when at the end, when you guys were talking about the call and you were like, I have to report it. And Larry's like, and you said, it's my duty. And then he screams, enough with your duty. Too much duty. You're off duty. Like, I was dying. I was absolutely dying. Was that like the most fun thing ever to do?
It was a lot of fun, actually. Surprisingly, I initially declined the invitation. I never really watched that show too much. I mean, I watched Seinfeld.
You shouldn't admit that.
I know.
Yeah, you shouldn't admit that.
I just didn't. It was on HBO.
Upset a lot of Jews with that comment.
Yeah. Well, when we lived overseas, we didn't have access to HBO. That was sort of the thing.
It was on HBO and stuff like that. So it was just harder to kind of get into it based on where we lived. But of course, I knew who he was. And when, after I declined, they're like, why don't you at least take a call with Larry? And he was funny and charming and stuff like that. When we spoke and kind of pitched a pretty comical idea, although I wasn't sure how I felt about stealing shoes from the Holocaust Museum. That kind of I was not
risky, definitely not risky.
Yeah. But it ended up being lots of fun. The cast was terrific. Cheryl was just about as lovely as you could imagine. Super, just very welcoming and very kind. So I really enjoyed working with the cast and crew. Larry was a little bit odd, but you know that.
Alex,
I think that's a gross understatement.
Say those things. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I think he would. I think that's why. That's part of his draw. Is part of his appeal.
Oh, my kids all the time tell me that was so Larry David what you just did, which basically means I was inappropriate, unpolitically correct, and saying and doing something I should not have done. But that is that's his thing.
I shouldn't be perceived as harshly negative. It's just that, he's odd.
So was it all ad-lib? Were you improvising? Keeping informed with the format of the show, like everything is improvising.
Yeah, I'm much better kind of unscripted, frankly. And the few times that there was something a script of some sort. Even then, it wasn't kind of ironclad. It was just kind of relatively loose.
Right.
But I would do what Larry does, which is line. Somebody would tell me the line, I would say the line, and we'd move on. But yeah, I think
This could be a whole new career for you.
I took a lot of liberties. And improvised a couple things, like, you know, the sneaking around the committee members' mother's house. You know, we played around with that idea, like, you know, using some spy tradecraft and stuff like that. Some of it didn't make it.
But the last line, when you said, you know, "Call me Colonel."
Yeah, that was
improvised.
Oh, wow.
That was actually quite funny.
That is funny.
I thought that was really funny.
I'm the funniest member of my family, so.
Sure.
You're the funniest member of the first Trump impeachment hearing, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Rachel, were you on set for that Curb stuff?
No, it was during the height of COVID, and what was funny is Alex's office is off of our bedroom, and he was having this. I was in our bedroom, like, I don't know, folding laundry or something, and I was like, his computer is, the back of it is towards, I guess, you know, the door to the room. So I was like, is that the real Larry David? Like, you're on a Zoom with the real Larry David? And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
But it was also top secret, so I left, but I just couldn't believe he was really talking to him. And then, you know, things didn't happen for a while. We thought, well, maybe it's not going to happen. And then they reached out and wanted to make travel arrangements. And we had a niece in LA that we hadn't met. She was actually born on Alex's birthday in June. And so we were excited to go. This is in March, to meet her because, again, COVID shutdowns and couldn't fly and everything. So we were not really sure what to expect at all. But
what did we do for your birthday again?
Oh, yeah, for my birthday, it was really awesome. Alex filmed Curb all day, and then he went to Arnold Schwarzenegger's house in the evening and hung out with him.
For a couple hours.
So, but it was okay.
Alex,
yeah. It was
thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but the good thing was I got to be with my nieces who live there. So
awesome.
it was quite. But I dropped him off a couple times, and I have to tell you, Alex's like spy tradecraft and powers of observation. We went to an event in LA, I guess around March of this year, so it was a year later, and he was like, you know, I'm pretty sure like the house, Larry's house on Curb is like, it's right around here somewhere. And we were talking to the people of the event where we were going, and they were like, yeah, it's 2 doors down. I was like,
wow.
The house we parked in front of. So Alex's powers of observation are really good if he wants them to be, but
very very James Bond of you.
Yes. I mean, it's only like when he turns it on, maybe it's a switch. But
and so
it was a great experience.
The big question is: are you guys now binging every episode of Curb or not?
We watched the entire last season.
We watched a couple seasons before that too.
Yeah, we did.
Prep.
So I'm working on my doctoral dissertation. Actually, I turned in the first draft last Saturday, and working on revisions now. So that kind of that you know supersedes all other kind of leisure activities.
More important than Curb?
That is the midterm.
Yeah. This is why I don't have a PhD.
Yeah,
or a master's degree.
Almost there.
What's the dissertation on?
U.S. policy towards Ukraine from 1991 to 2004. Or I touched it's basically the prelude to how we got to this war.
It's riveting, absolutely riveting.
Are you being sarcastic? Somehow I sense sarcasm there.
Yeah, it's about as exciting as it can be, and Alex, it's quite readable, but I mean, it's still hundreds of pages of academic work. So
wow,
think of that what you will.
Well, congrats on that. Good luck with that. Last thing is, before we get to some lighter stuff, is what's home life like for you guys? You got an 11-year-old daughter, right? So she still likes you. I have an 18-year-old, so I say that with a measure of remorse. But
it's wonderful. Ellie's terrific, but with Rachel, it's also miserable. No, just kidding. No, it's good. We have a pretty happy home life. It's kind of Ellie and I are very kind of peppy and cheery and stuff like that.
And Rachel is.
I know. I mean,
like what?
It's like that.
Finish
You really
that sentence.
left that
You're
there.
like
I mean,
just
my
left it
goodness.
there.
I don't want to. I mean, I'll let you draw your own conclusions. No, we have
Conclusions
a happy,
already drawn, Alex.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges right now are maybe unpredictability. You know, that's the consequence of the whole Trump affair is just
Right.
kind of everything still is new. We are, you know, I'd like to think that I've been pretty successful. I've written a huge amount, you know, whether that's for dissertation or publication discussing what's going on in Ukraine. I'm on TV.
A book.
Yeah, a book. I'm on TV talking about this. I'm engaged with the White House and Congress. Lots of really, really interesting things lots of interesting projects, but there's a huge amount of unpredictability. I think Rachel's pretty frustrated that we still live in our house that we thought we were only going to live in for 3 years when we moved back from Moscow in 2015. And she's really itching to move somewhere. So we're, you know, trying to resolve some of these issues, but it's pretty good.
I think, you know, I think our home life is just normal. I mean, that's what I try to tell people. I was just I'm traveling, getting ready to go home, but for the past 3 weeks, I've been visiting some battleground state where the organization that I work for has really tried to reach out and mobilize suburban women. And, you know, it's this, there's a lot of people who've been retaliated against, even at local levels and docks. Mallory McMorrow's mom was there last night and I got to meet her, which was really special. But, you know, she talked about, I really didn't know. I mean, she's had to call the police many times just because Mallory McMorrow got up and, you know, did a speech that went viral and said she's not a groomer. I mean, like just defending herself.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And and then like especially local school board elections and I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And, you know, when we did our Lincoln Project ad like 2 years ago, and this is actually why Alex didn't do a scripted version of Curb, because we did like 78 takes, I think. Alex is not so good with scripts, but he's really good just spontaneously. So we had to do a lot of takes. But my first line, which I remember because I said it so many times, is what happened to us could happen to anyone.
Sure. And it is. And
right. And so like we have a bigger platform, so it's a little bit harder, I mean, to go after us, and we were able to get protection and stuff. But this is the issue of like, we are just normal people. And so when we're fighting extremism, it's so important to realize that this could happen to anyone. It's frustrating that, you know, one side thinks that they get to decide what normal is, who gets to live their own lives, you know, sort of free without interference, without,
Yeah, no, and I want to get to a lot of that stuff shortly. And so I just want to ask right now, like, so what is your current party affiliation? I know, Rachel, I read something where you had said something like, I was a card-carrying member of the Republican Party. Alex, I have a sense of maybe where you land, but like, are you in the middle? Are you Democrats, independents?
I registered as a Democrat whenever whenever Alex retired and we got our Virginia driver's license and we had to become Virginia voters, and I registered proudly as a Democrat. I can never see myself voting for a Republican again, because I think, you know, for the rest of forever, this is the fight, and I just can't be part of a party. I mean, not that I really voted with them for a while, but I cannot identify with a party who either publicly or just by default. I mean, because the number of Republicans that will come up to Alex and say, "Hey, I'm a Republican. I just wanted to say thank you for what you've done. I really admire it. I want to vomit or hit them." So usually I just walk away. But nope. If you don't have the guts to stand up and say something's wrong, then I have no desire to even talk to you, much less vote with you.
Right. And Alex, I don't know where you were before or where you are now. I probably doubt you have Bernie Sanders bumper stickers on your car, but like, where have you landed?
So I would say this. I can tell you where I was from a mental state of mind. I grew up in New York City, so I tended to be more socially kind of liberal, but kind of from a foreign policy tended to be more conservative. So I was middle of the road. I think military in general tends to be kind of center right, center left. We don't usually have a lot of we didn't in the past have a lot of extremism. I think it's a growing issue now. In the past, I voted for whoever I thought was the best candidate, not necessarily driven by kind of party lines. But I think, as Rachel pointed out, but when we registered and here in Virginia, based on the fact that we took up residency here after I retired, I registered as a Democrat. There's another kind of note here. In the military, we're apolitical, and we take that seriously to the point that we abrogate some of our responsibilities. We have too many folks in the military that frankly just do not vote. Military officers in particular, because they think that could be a partisan activity. And that's one of the things I've really, frankly, there was a 180-degree turnaround for me there, because I think it's more fundamental than, frankly, even your military duties and responsibilities, or your duties as a citizen of the United States. And there you need to vote. Mm-hmm. So I think this is an unhealthy feature that we try in the military, that we go take the apolitical nature too far, where we abrogate our responsibilities and we don't participate in the democracy that we've signed up to defend, even at potentially the cost of our lives.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I want to talk about Twitter for a second, which, depending upon who you are and what day it is, it could either be a great thing, a horrible thing. I've gone viral in a great way. I've gone viral in a not so great way. But you guys on Twitter, I find awesome. You're my favorite Twitter couple, way more than Kanye and Kim, even though they're not technically a couple anymore, although I think Kanye still thinks they are. You inject a lot of humor, a lot of sarcasm. It seems that those virtues are very important to both of you. For example, Alex, on September 30th, around the talk of all the annexing of regions of Ukraine by Russia, you tweeted, "Tomorrow at 2:59 p.m. I will sign a decree annexing the entirety of the Russian Federation." And then you tweeted recently, "My next act will be will liberate all occupied Ukraine territories and grant all of Russia's colonial holding independence. You are all welcome to attend the signing ceremony." And Rachel, you are also a prolific tweeter. You're incredibly loyal, which I love. You also criticize Alex, particularly his spelling, I've noticed. So I love the back and forth between you guys. How important is Twitter?
Comma usage.
How important is Twitter to you both as public figures, controversial figures, but also just as Americans who might see it as a forum to speak your mind?
Controversial? I don't know what way.
Some people have said that, Alex. Personally, I don't believe that. It's not my opinion.
Not the best people.
I think you actually need to speak up more, Alex. Really take a stand, a firm stand.
Yeah. I will just say, this is Rachel's kind of bailiwick here, but I would say that I tend to not be sarcastic. That's kind of a new feature as I've kind of gotten a little bit more, free with my public role. I tend to be more policy oriented, but that one was hard to resist.
I was going to say, annexing Russia. You might win the sarcasm award on Twitter, actually.
That one. So I like to punch back against like these ridiculous or MAGA Republican, politicians. So that I might be a little bit snarky there, but in general, I try to keep it pretty serious about policy. But when Russia says it's going to annex like 4 territories in Ukraine when it's getting its ass kicked, it's kind of hard to resist that one.
Of course, especially coming from someone like you, And Rachel, you, speaking of punching back, Rachel, you took some heat recently. You tweeted something. You said we should, regarding the Hurricane Ian, you had said we should use they/them pronouns for Hurricane Ian to annoy DeSantis. I support that tweet 1,000,000,000%. I know exactly what you meant by it. I think most people know exactly what you meant by it. You apologized for it. You took it down, apologizing in the sense of recognizing that it might have been insensitive to some people. Mm-hmm. But to me, it wasn't insensitive, and it was a punchback. It was exactly what someone like you or any of us should be tweeting. Because it's an infuriating thing that needs to be pointed out all the time.
I mean, what I was trying to do was, and I think you understand, is I was trying to say, like, this is a governor, we're going to have a horrible situation, a governor who has been worried about things that aren't real. And now we have a real situation where people are going to die, where people are going to lose everything. But he's been worried about attacking children and other, solving problems that don't exist, and decimating public education and departments and agencies because people weren't loyal to him. So we're losing a lot of institutional knowledge right when you need it the most. And I did get some blowback from the trans community who thought it wasn't helpful. I mean, that's being said, after I deleted, I got people that said, hey, that was the people in the trans community who thought it was fine. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a stumbling block. I'm still learning, and I think that's really important. Again, at the event that I was attending last night, we were talking, sort of as privileged, if you will, white suburban women. If we're going to be allies, we have to listen. And sometimes you can think you're doing something, and it might not land as well, mm-hmm. With others. So I want to be respectful of that. I will never apologize for going after Ron DeSantis. And it was funny. There was one of those just purely online, clickbait, right-wing websites wrote a piece, and they had all my tweets, and I was like, it's actually like I would retweet this because this is exactly what I did, and I meant every word of it. They had all the tweets, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I meant. That's exactly what I meant. I apologize to the trans community. I do not apologize to Ron DeSantis. I doubled down on how I feel about Ron DeSantis. And I'm sorry, in the attempt to be humorous, if it got lost for some people, that's not what I wanted. But
you don't make. I don't think you make any mistakes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Alex, you read my mind. I mentioned before, you guys, the loyalty that I see on Twitter. You recently tweeted, Alex, quote, I don't think, and you used Rachel's Twitter handle, NatSec Hobbyist. I don't think Rachel makes any mistakes. I think she's perfect. Quote. That was a quote. And then on September 20th, on September 20th, Rachel, you tweeted, just now at Dulles Airport, a man came up to me and asked if I was Rachel Vindman. I told him I am. And he said, my husband and I are shitbags, and walked away. This has never happened to me, to my far more recognizable husband. And that is the difference between the way people think they can treat women. And Alex, you rode in on your horse to her rescue, your Twitter horse, whatever that looks like, Twitter horse. And you said, cowards! Some lowlife menaces my wife at the airport. Try picking on me. Only once was I challenged in public and face-to-face, and it was some Weasley former GOP congressman in the White House. Didn't go well for him. I mean, this stuff is awesome. And I really respect both of you for speaking your mind, for defending each other, But as I said, Twitter is a crazy landscape, and there's always going to be people who will find the something, the negative.
This is easy. First of all, let me tell you about my Twitter. It's a stallion. It's a huge, massive stallion, armor plated. That's what I charge it.
It's like a Trojan horse.
Yeah. No, it's armor plated, like they're kind of medieval armored. You don't want to mess with the
armor.
The kind from Monty Python, like
yeah, something like that.
All right,
yeah.
There you go.
Don't you think, Andy, like people just want to see someone punching back? I mean, look, speaking of Mallory McMorrow, look at what she said went viral, because we're like, we want that. I said this on Twitter yesterday. I say this all the time. We are fighting for our families, for our communities, for democracy, for our country. We want politicians who fight back also. Like, people love this Dark Brandon thing. I don't really understand what Dark Brandon is, but the president. But they love that the president is punching back in a meaningful way, not just sarcasm or like, fight for us. We elected you. Fight for us. We have felt like we got beat up by all these MAGAs who somehow emerged from under rocks. They have their flags. They have their team. Like, we're a team too. We're just not crazy about it.
Sorry, I just want to say, I want to share my Twitter secret. Okay, this is what makes Twitter work. If you follow this rule, then you have no issues.
Okay.
First of all, for me, it's a source of information. I've basically the only reason I set it up in the summer of 2018 when I joined the White House, because I needed to know.
To see if people were getting fired.
To see, to know what the president was tweeting, because it was going to affect my day at work. And it was going to have like some policy implications, or mainly it was going to be broken glass that had to be swept up. So I still use it as a information tool to understand what's going on, where kind of news. It's just amazing, community sourced news. But there's another trick to it. If I use it as mainly as a kind of a tool, maybe a little bit as entertainment when I follow Rachel's account. But I fire off tweets and I really don't care about comments. I say what I think I need to say, and I just don't pay attention. I mean, every now and then I might take a pulse of what's going on, but just to understand kind of what the temperature check. But I really, really, frankly, do not care what people say in response. Unfortunately, sometimes that might mean good folks that try to kind of respond and engage in a discourse. I don't necessarily do that. I haven't. I apologize for that. But I also, frankly, don't have any time or any inclination to engage with trolls. And as a matter of fact, I often try to, when I do look at responses, I do it to kind of troll back. I see if there's somebody that's following me that said something profane or negative, and I just block them. So it's kind of like a game I do. Like I put some bait out there. It's like this. I can start blocking people. So
blocking is really, the best.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying.
It is so satisfying. But that's sage advice, Alex, and it's pretty much what I follow personally. I have almost, I don't know, maybe I have like around 92,000 followers, which to me is amazing. I mean, Taylor Swift probably has like 80 million or something, but for me, it's like 91,990 more than I ever thought I'd get. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I've learned the hard way how to sort of navigate through this crazy space. I don't engage with people. I used to. Once in a while, if there's something that could elicit a really snarky response from me that points out a bigger picture, a bigger issue, I will go there. But I think you're right. The key is just speak your mind, have your voice. If it's a unique voice, an important voice, people will follow that voice and listen to it. People have told me that, I speak for them, which is a crazy concept for me to accept. But there's a lot of people who said, I can't articulate what's in my brain. And so there are people who do that for me, and I'm very appreciative of that. And the key is not to look at the comments, because there's not just bots, but real life crazy people that are out there. But it is an incredible space, and it connects people, and it is a great forum, and it is a great curator of news and a place where people go. And so, Rachel, I want to play a clip, and then I want to ask you a couple things about your podcast. But let's play this clip. It's a little long, but it goes really quick because I think everyone should have this clip for themselves, like their own little 90-second bio, which just so aptly describes who they are and what they're doing and what they're all about.
Hi, I'm Rachel Vindman. I am a suburban mom who lives in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. with my husband. You may have heard of him.
A key witness in President Trump's impeachment trial.
Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman.
And you went immediately and you reported it, didn't you?
I did.
Why?
Because that was my duty.
Our lives changed dramatically.
No, I don't know Vindman. I never heard of him. I never saw the man.
Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, he is retiring. Through a campaign of bullying, intimidation, and retaliation, the President of the United States attempted to force Lieutenant Colonel Vindman to choose between adhering to the law or pleasing a president.
After wife and mother, the most important identity I have is that of a military spouse. For a long time, I was silent. The military in general is apolitical. I really decided to speak out because the dangers that were posed by Trump and his supporters. I see where our country is going and I don't like it. I want to be part of the change. I want to show my daughter that you can work on a small level and still make a difference. And I truly believe that suburban women can lead that change. I think the best way to use my voice is to use it to speak to other women who have the same issues and problems that I do. And that's what I hope to do with the Suburban Women Problem podcast with Red, White, and Blue. I want people to have a place where they can understand it's okay, once you have more information, to change your mind.
I think that's great, and I am thankful for suburban women. I think they saved America two years ago. Hopefully, they're going to save it again. But tell us about that. What is the genesis of this podcast? What do you ultimately hope to gain from it? What success have you seen and experienced so far from it?
Well, we started in 2021, May 2021, and actually they just kind of cold called me and asked me, Red, White, and Blue, they wanted to do this podcast. And Red, White, and Blue had been active in Ohio in the 2020 election, and they've since expanded to Michigan, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. We just try to mobilize women in relational organizing, which is something I think you're going to be, those who are not familiar with the idea of relational organizing, trying to break through those information silos that we have through which a lot of us receive our information these days due to algorithms and news channels and et cetera. So even, print publications. So, talking to our friends and our acquaintances and mobilizing. So that's through the podcast, we try to kind of demystify. We try to talk about, real people, real women interviewing other generally women, talking about issues like, moms of trans kids and what they wish the rest of us knew, how to be an ally. I mean, what is critical race theory? Back when that was was one of our first episodes, that was a thing. And now I think everyone kind of understands it's nothing. But at the time, Democrats, I think, have this tendency like, oh, we don't have to talk about that. It's not really happening. It's not really a thing. And I like to liken it to, like, I don't think Alex and I were ready with, when our daughter was 9, with some of the questions she had. Like, oh, that wasn't on my schedule to discuss these things until you were like 11 or 12. But guess what?
Or
you
ever.
don't get to call the shot. Yeah, right. I mean, the Army, they say the enemy gets a vote. And I think that's a great way. Even in politics, like, the enemy gets a vote. The person you're running against gets to decide. They might have, they might start a conversation about something, and you can't just say, oh, I'm not going to talk about that because that's not a thing. So we talk about those things. And then this tour that I've been doing has been really encouraging, to go out and attend some of these events where we have so many women coming and they're like, I've never done anything political before. I've never talked to my friends about politics, but now I know I need to. And, on the other hand, I talked to Alex yesterday and I said I did an interview and I was really upset because we still have people who think, oh, well, we didn't put out signs because, this was People for School Board in Bucks County, which is like unhinged. And they were saying last year people didn't put out signs because their neighbors asked them not to. So, it's this moment of like, look, we're never going back to normal. I know you think by not putting up the signs that you're bringing down the temperature and it's going to be okay, but that ship has sailed. And we have to convince people, even this is going to happen whether you participate or not. Do you want your voice heard? Do you want to do this? So I'm excited. It's been energizing, and inspirational to see these women mobilize and be active in their communities, but there's still a lot of work to do. And so I hadn't heard that clip in a long time, and it's a nice reminder. But I think it's not. I mean, it's a small part of Red, White, and Blue, which is a PAC, and we hope to expand to other states. Just we have some great user-friendly technology and other things, and I guess we'll find out in November. But the number of people that we have mobilized and the excitement women have to talk to their friends has been just really tremendous, and it's only growing. And I agree, suburban women, which are not a monolith. I mean, more people of color live in the suburbs than in urban areas. Not what you think, and we're dispelling some myth. And I hope getting everyone on the team.
Well, it's so important.
I just want a quick comment back to Rachel. This is a game of inches, and this is a particularly important demographic where if your efforts are conceivably materially going to change outcomes, whether it's local or federal elections. So do we hate it when you're gone? Do we miss you? Yes, but we know that you're doing very, very important work, and we're very, very proud of you.
Thanks.
I second that. So please keep doing that, and hopefully the impact is going to be seen in a little more than a month. Alex, I want to switch and talk about Ukraine. And as a disclaimer, I want to say that I am not an expert on Ukraine. I kind of feel like me talking to you about Ukraine is kind of like Harry Styles talking to Mick Jagger about music.
I like Harry.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is your daughter into Harry?
She's into she's very into music.
That dude's got a beautiful voice. I mean, I don't know what. There's a couple. And he's
By the way, that's the big soundbite to come out of this interview is Colonel Vindman loves Harry Styles. That's the news. That's what's breaking tomorrow.
He's got a good voice, and I really liked him. I liked him in Dunkirk too. And if he wants to invite us to to a concert, and Ellie gets backstage patches, so be it.
Oh, we're gonna try to make that happen. That's a challenge I want to take on. I took my daughter. Have you seen Harry? Have you taken your daughter to see Harry?
No, I tried to get tickets, but I couldn't get tickets. But she wanted to go. I actually tried to get a line from a Taylor Swift song into Alex's opening statements, and the lawyers took it out, which is really just so disappointing. I thought I'd really put in something.
Lawyers, they have no sense of humor.
Get a lot of people. I know, they're lawyers.
I think really if I made it onto any of the night shows, I was going to use that line and say, the whole. You say it in the street, it's a knockout. You say it in a tweet, it's a cop out.
Nice.
That's why.
Go Taylor.
Yeah.
You guys are Swifties. I didn't know that. Actually, I had Eric Swalwell on this podcast several weeks back, and found out he was a Swiftie too, which kind of shocked me. But I took my daughter recently to see Harry at Madison Square Garden. I think I was one of
the one I wanted to go to.
I was like one of 6 dads in the entire place, and I went into the men's room. And I go to Madison Square Garden all the time for Knicks basketball games. I'm waiting online like 20 minutes. I went into the men's room. There was nobody in it because there was no men in this place. I literally walked in. I was like, which urinal should I use? Like, I've never had that experience at the Garden. It was the craziest. Plus, there was like 14-year-old girls like wearing. My daughter was like, Dad, turn around and face the wall. I was like, I didn't know where to put myself. But Ukraine. Okay, so nuclear Armageddon. This is what Joe Biden dropped on us last night at a fundraiser in New York. We all kind of woke up to the prospect of this kind of thing. He said his direct quote was, "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis." And basically he was suggesting that because Russia is so grossly underperforming that Putin is either going to panic or he's going to get desperate or he's just going to get angry and do something really stupid. What's your take on that?
So this is good. I get to test my material here before I go.
Before you go into real news outlets.
Well, I've actually, while we were talking, I got an invite for Nicole, so do that. But I would say, look, if I wasn't working on my doctoral dissertation, there's an important article to write on Russia's threats of nuclear war. It is, to me, it is a high stakes bluff. There is not a great deal of substance to it. There is an increasing chance of accident or miscalculation. But this would not be a conscious decision that Russia took. This would be like a whole massive series of unfortunate events that could lead up to it. And I think that's what the president was referring to. He was referring to the fact that the temperature around the potential for the use of nuclear weapons has changed. He's a longtime senator. He kind of musing on this notion of where we are relative to history. He's a super old guy, so he was basically he was aware of these things as they were going on back in the olden days. And to me, it was just him kind of at this event talking about what the temperature is, how the geopolitical environment has changed. This is the same thing that I've said in different terms. I wouldn't have probably used those words as president in something that was being recorded, but this is the same thing that I've been talking about from before this war started. That a war between Russia and Ukraine would be a geopolitical earthquake that would transform the geopolitical terrain of the world. And yes, we're now in a world where there's the tiniest of incremental changes in the probability that nuclear weapons could be used, but it has changed as a result of this war. That's why I was so keen on avoiding this war in the first place by arming the Ukrainians, warning the Russians, not taking this kind of, inevitability view that Russia was going to roll over Ukraine. We didn't do any of that. And we also, frankly, over the course of the past 8 months, didn't do enough to arm Ukraine to warn Russia off or close off their possibilities of success I think the fact is that if they were getting knocked down every single time at every single turn, Putin would be forced in a position of not escalating but de-escalating, because the military wouldn't be in a position to kind of continue to hold ground or something of that nature. So I think the president's remarks are, again, adding some context that the last time we were in a position where, there was some real danger of a nuclear escalation was in 1962 for the Cuban Missile Crisis. But I can tell your listeners that the situation has not fundamentally changed. There is really no risk of war between Russia and Ukraine, nuclear war, because it's mutually assured destruction. There's no. I'm sorry. Let's wind that back. There is no real risk of war between NATO and Russia, the U.S. and Russia, because of the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. Putin is a guy that's going to save his skin. He's going to look to live to fight another day. He's going to take actions that preserve options as much as he can. And a nuclear war with the U.S. doesn't do that. It does the opposite of aggrandizing Putin and his legacy and power. It ends all that.
But what if he sees this as an existential crisis, and the off ramp that we keep hearing about? Like, if he doesn't see that, if he's backed into a corner like a New York City subway rat, isn't that a fertile ground for some kind of nuclear aggression?
No, because one of them is direct and one of them is kind of theoretical. The use of nuclear weapons is in direct response to an existential crisis, meaning you have NATO troops on the doorsteps of Moscow. You have a nuclear attack by NATO. That is a clear and present danger, not the atmospherics of, well, if these series of things happen, then the regime is in peril. I think that there is a recipe for escalation, with some sort of escalation with Ukraine, probing and prodding to figure out where the vulnerabilities are, to see if you could break Western resolve or the Western support towards Ukraine. Those types of things are going to play out. Absolutely, we're in a more dangerous period of potential risks as Russia looks for vulnerabilities. But when push comes to shove, there's not going to be a decision made to use nuclear weapons against NATO. I think that the calculus is slightly different in Ukraine. It is also really points to a situation where it would precipitate the same kind of outcomes. I think the fact is that there have been plenty of policymakers now that said that this would be a game changer. This would change kind of the way that the West has already thought about this war. Some folks have said the destruction of the Black Sea, Russia's Black Sea Fleet, and things of that nature, which again spells the direct confrontation between NATO and Russia and puts us on that path towards nuclear Armageddon. The Russians are going to avoid that. They want something that gives them as much pressure as possible to try to warn off the West. But when push comes to shove, they're not going to challenge the West directly. They're just having too hard a time. The other issue with Russia using nuclear weapons is, it still has vestiges of support with India and China. It would put those countries in an untenable position where they would have to basically break relations with Russia because it chose to use a nuclear weapon against the seemingly kind of, nothing regional power, because its conventional forces were getting their asses whooped. So I think it's slightly higher, but it's not significantly higher even against Ukraine.
And what about Putin's leadership? Is that in any real danger? And if so, if there was a horizon that included his ouster, what would Russia look like beyond that? What kind of leadership is on waiting in the wings to either create some sense of normalcy and sanity, or take it even worse to a worse place?
Sure. So my analysis, I'd say, is completely valid for the next 3 to 6 months, both on nuclear weapons, and frankly, the same will apply to Putin's regime. I don't see the acute danger signs of Putin being removed, either by a palace coup or by major unrest. I think that he has enormous repressive tools that he could exercise against the population at large. I think that the regime is going to close ranks. What it looks like in the longer term, I think he does have an expiration date now because of this war. I think that might be 2024 when he might want to step aside as his current term expires and let somebody else be the face of Russia while he pulls the strings from behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did that in 2008. I could see that kind of situation unfolding. I do see a greater instability unfolding, so there's going to be violence in the streets in Russia. I think there's going to be some probing and prodding, like the precursors to potentially what might end up being a nuclear use against Ukraine. I think there are a lot of them. It's going to be anything from a nuclear accident at a power plant. It's going to be attacks like we saw against the Nord Stream pipeline. There could be undersea cables that allow us to communicate with our European allies. It could be a whole bunch of different cyber attacks. All these different things would unfold before we get to this kind of end stage of nuclear use.
I know you guys got to go in a couple of minutes. My last question on this subject is, what do you make of this bizarre cozying up to Putin and Russia by the Republican Party, which is just antithetical to decades of Cold War and nationalism and aggression towards Russia? It just seems like we're living in an upside down world.
I don't know, Rachel. Do you have an answer to that one? I do.
I do not have an answer.
Well, we happen to have Larry David here. He's got an answer for you.
Enough. The thing, it's. I think what it comes down to is, every single one of these characters are in it for personal gain, and they see some personal gain in being traitors and treasonous. Whether that meets the technical definition or the criminal liability definition, they're prepared to explore those avenues because they see personal gain based on this kind of radicalized far right, and it's not it's still fringe. It still amounts to millions of people, but in a country of 330 million people that they could cater to and pander to. Because Tucker Carlson might.
But they have a loud voice. The problem is, it seems like a little outside.
Sure. I don't know what Tucker Carlson's ratings are, but he probably at any given day he probably has about 3 million people watching him or something like that, right? That amounts to about 1% of the population. 1% of the population. We need to remember that. And he's got probably about that many. He's got probably a bigger followership in Russia, frankly, at this point than he does in the U.S.
But do you think he believes the bullshit that comes out of his mouth, or is he just pandering to his audience and wanting to make a buck?
I think he's a grifter, and I think he largely doesn't believe it. He may have convinced himself of certain aspects of it, but frankly, I think he's just he's a liar and a cheat and a scoundrel and willing to do anything. And that's basically that's why he does it.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Alex, Rachel, you guys have been amazing. You have a lot of fans out there. Hopefully they're going to enjoy hearing about you guys and what makes you tick. And I thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Andy.
So there you have it. Episode 19 in the can. I want to thank my co-producer, engineer, and editor, Maddie Rosenberg, our Jane of all trades, Jen Hamoud, Cricket Langell for our logo design, Andy Hollander for our kick-ass music, Patricia Wind and the Epicurean for the backroom studio, and an awesome thank you again to our amazing, very entertaining, very smart guests, Rachel and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. So keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Have a great week.